In this week's episode of the Ask the Big podcast, we're going to be talking about what I took away from the Raleigh, North Carolina Realtors NAR Settlement panel discussion. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Ask the Bic podcast, where you'll hear answers to the most frequently asked questions from North Carolina real estate brokers. Submit your questions via email to askthebic@gmail.com. That's askthebic@gmail.com.
Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another week of the Ask the Big podcast. My name is Russ Lockamy, and I've been a broker in charge in the Raleigh, North Carolina area since 2011. And this week's question comes from one of my very own agents, John, and he asked, what did I take away from the Raleigh, North Carolina Realtors NAR Settlement panel discussion that I went to last week? So two things are going to be changing coming in August. One is that we must have a buyer agency agreement signed before showing a property. So in North Carolina, that's not that big of a change. In fact, when buyer agency started years and years ago, that was a requirement that we have a buyer agency agreement signed before even showing a property. In fact, I learned at the panel discussion that when buyer agency first came out, it was even required before buyer agents or agents shared a price of a property. So before the internet and before everything, Zillow and all that kind of stuff, the realtors kind of held all the information, right? And somebody called and asked, hey, what was that home listed for? Well, they had to halt the discussion, talk about agency, get that person to sign an agency agreement. And this is what I was told at the panel discussion, at least. And then they could tell them the price. Well, eventually they loosened up some of those rules and changed it to what we have today, which is a buyer agency agreement has to be signed prior to submitting an offer with a buyer. But that is going to change a little bit, so we're going to have those buyer agency agreements before showing the property. My inclination, or what I discovered at the panel discussion, was that was going to be audited by the MLS. So you can't think, oh, well, how's anybody going to know? They're going to be auditing it somehow, that realtors are meeting that requirement, right? So I don't think this is a huge problem for realtors in North Carolina. Many states, in fact, most states, do not have a buyer agency agreement requirement like we already have in North Carolina. So this is a much bigger deal and a much bigger change for those states. With us, we're just required to have that agency agreement a little bit earlier, and I think it's just going to lead to a little bit more professionalism. In fact, I think agents are going to be needing to brush up on their buyer agency presentation skills, and going to have to know their value a little bit better in the process, and be able to convey that to buyers. But I think it's going to be a good thing. I also think that many times buyers would just want to get their foot in the door. They don't want to sign anything, but good agents are going to be able to show their value and also use this requirement as a need to have those buyers go ahead and sign with them. So the days of ended up not being able to get a buyer to sign an agency agreement and still showing them a few homes, and using all that gas money and all that time just for that buyer to end up using another agent are gone, if you follow this rule correctly. So I think there's pros and cons with it. I think in the end, this is going to be a good change for our industry. The second big change is that commission is going to be removed from the MLS. So in August is when kind of these changes come, and the commission split field for buyers agents commission split will be removed from the MLS. The feeling that I got from the panel discussion was nobody really knows how that is going to affect our industry long term. Right? The idea behind the lawsuit and the settlement was that Realtor-owned MLSs created an anti-competitive environment by sharing buyer-agent commission splits because it was just, an anti-competitive environment. And that was found to be an antitrust violation, and that's what led to the lawsuit and to the eventual settlement agreement. So what, right now we have to take care of this is the Cooperating Compensation Agreement Form 220. We've always had the Form 220. It's been completely redrafted due to the settlement. And it's the form that many of us have used if we were representing a buyer in another MLS. So a buyer who was purchasing a home that was not in our MLS, maybe it was in another one, we would use this form to ensure that you as an agent would get paid, and our firm would get a compensation from that sale because it was not in our member MLS. So this form is going to be your new best friend. You are going to need to use that form on every transaction, and it's going to be very important the timing of using that form. You're going to want to negotiate and have that form signed before you even submit an offer. So you're going to show homes. You're going to get a buyer agency signed. You're going to show homes. You're going to find that home for that buyer. And whether you've got an email or whether it's the cooperating compensation commission split is showed on the website of the home, the listing agent's website or wherever, you're still going to want this form because that is your legal contract that shows that you get paid. So you'll be sending that prior to even sending an offer, negotiating that, getting that signed by the seller, the listing company, and yourself, and it shows, you can look the form up, and it shows, what commission split is and all that kind of stuff. So that is really the method that we're going to be looking at in August until any other forms changes happen. My prediction, I'm going to give a prediction on this, is that eventually that form kind of is going to find its way in the offer to purchase. Right now, the way that the law in North Carolina is set up, commission cannot be put into the offer to purchase. But I think eventually this process is going to find its way to be a little bit prohibitive and not really good for buyers and sellers. And I think that they'll eventually change that and allow commission to be put in the offer to purchase. That's just my prediction. Have no way to support that at all, but it's my prediction that would happen in the next couple of years. So, John, I hope this answers your question. There was a lot more that I learned and a lot of things coming down the pipeline with these changes, but just remember that, another thing that was talked about is we as realtors, we've seen a lot of changes in the markets and in the way that business is done, but we're a resilient bunch. We will make it through. I do not think that there's going to be any negative long-term effects from this. I think it's going to be changes in just a way of doing business. The important thing is to look out for your buyers and sellers, and just do your best for your clients, and it'll work out. So hope this answers your question, John. My name is Russ Lockamy. As always, life is short, so take action, but don't take it too seriously. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Ask the BIC podcast. To have your question answered on a future episode, email us at askthebic@gmail.com. That's askthebic@gmail.com.